Hey guys, well here's the official episode to talk about my experience in Scotland. Traveling throughout the UK, we went to Scotland, Northern Ireland, Ireland, and learned a lot about their history, their culture, their society. But we had a really interesting conversation on the tour bus as we were cruising through the Scottish Highlands in particular. And they were talking about, one of the wonderful things about Scotland is the free healthcare and how things work like that. And then, of course, as we dug into that, you come to find out, and of course, nothing's for free. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to break down, well, how does that compare? How does socialistic medicine, so to speak, that other countries have compare with what it's like here in the US, which certainly it isn't perfect here. And some things are ridiculously expensive. So let's break that down a little bit. I want to give you some real honest feedback on what that looks like. Now, you've probably heard people say, well, in places like the UK and this country, that country, healthcare is free. And they talk about how everyone gets care and it's more fair and efficient overall. And I think we all would like to know the truth. Is it really as good as it sounds, or are the critics of systems like that right when they talk about excessive taxes or extra long wait times and other things? No doubt you've heard stories of people who travel to the US to get better care, or maybe you've heard stories about people leaving the US to get better care. So we've all heard these anecdotal stories, but I want to break down the actual math, look at actual rates and numbers. And of course, these are averages. So like any rule, there are exceptions. All right, so let's get specific. So if you add up the taxes that we pay and the health insurance premiums we pay, does that end up costing us more or less than the total taxes paid in other countries like Scotland that include providing health care? So of course, the truth is you're either paying out of pocket or you're paying through taxes. And so let's actually look at the real numbers. And it gets pretty eye-opening. I'm going to translate pounds sterling into American dollars so it makes a little more sense for us. So in Scotland, once you're earning between the equivalent of $58,000 a year and $100,000 a year, your tax rate is 42%. Now, the moment you go from $101,000 to $169,000 a year, it jumps to 45%. And above that, you're looking at a 48% income tax rate. Now, you have to add on to that the national insurance that you will pay, which is another 10%. So that means if you're a high income earner or high-ish, you're paying 58% of your income in taxes, leaving 42% for you to live on. So that's more than half gone. Imagine for a moment working nearly 7 months out of the year for free, just to fund government programs. Sounds great, right? But again, to be fair, if we add up what Americans pay for health insurance and add that to the average taxes being paid, is it actually more? Well, we want to look at those actual numbers. So let's compare that to the US. And we'll add in the typical health insurance premiums as well. So the average individual household income in the US is about $83,700, and the dual income households between $136,000 to $138,000. So we're going to just take an example of $130,000 a year as a dual income household to be conservative. Now, after standard deductions, you're taxed on about $98,500. Federal taxes are going to be roughly $12,500, and state taxes around $4,900. Now, I know some states are certainly higher in tax, some are lower, some have no state tax at all, but this is a national average we're going with here, so we got to just try and be average across the board. So adding that up, you're going to pay $17,400 in total taxes, which is 13.4%. Now let's factor in health insurance. A family of four might cost around $26,000 per year on the high end. Now, employers typically pay for about 80% of health insurance premiums. So your real out-of-pocket would be, on average, around $5,200 per year. So that brings your total to $22,600, which is 17.4% of your income. Now, we compare that to the equivalent income in Scotland, and that would mean you'd be paying 55% in total taxes in Scotland. That's a difference of $36,000 per year. Now, of course, we can talk about potential big out-of-pocket situations and unique circumstances, but the ultimate conclusion here, if we try to be as average and equal as we can, is typically, unless you have a huge out-of-pocket expense, you're going to get to keep a lot more of your money here in America while accessing healthcare. And especially if you look at lower income families, there are a lot of people here in America who pay nothing for healthcare, or incredibly low amounts, and low or almost no taxes at all. Of course, that's another issue for another time. That's another problem to solve / benefit, but again, another topic. But here's the part nobody talks about. It's not just about what you pay in taxes or insurance. It's about what you do with what you keep that matters most. Because if you're keeping an extra $30,000 a year compared to other families in other countries around the world, the question is, what are you doing with that? Are you using it to create freedom, accelerate retirement, build real wealth? Or are you just increasing your lifestyle, creating more debt, still feeling broke? Your greatest financial problem and risk, the ugly truth is it's not the taxes you pay or insurance premiums you pay. It's what happens after your money hits your account. What do you do with it? So if you really want to turn that extra income into real freedom and success, the ability to make an impact in this world around you, to help people in need, to enjoy an incredible quality of life with you and your family, well, that's a whole different conversation, and one we here at Vantage would love to have with you about how to make the most of every dollar you make. All right? So there's your comparison, comparing socialistic medicine to capitalistic situations like ours. And again, final caveat here, our system is far from perfect. There are certainly room for improvement and things that can be done to make it better. But all things being equal, taking some averages, we have it pretty good, and we have a responsibility to do the most with what we have.